All right, here we go. Lesson 2, week 8, quarter 3, almost done. Wow, hard to believe. Distance learning, almost over for some of you. So last time we were converting quadratic functions from standard form to vertex form. And like I said last time, it's hard to graph a quadratic function in standard form. It's possible, it can be done, but it's much easier to graph a quadratic function when it is in vertex form, because the vertex form gives you two things that you really need to know in order to graph a quadratic function. It gives you the vertex and it gives you the axis of symmetry. And you can see here on the graph, the vertex is a point where the x value is our h from our function and our y value is the k from our function. So last time when we were identifying those h's and k's, that's why, because we need to be able to identify those two to find the vertex of our function. And the axis of symmetry is even easier. It's just x equals h. So it's whatever the x value of our vertex is. Okay, so you can kind of see the connection. It's just the x value of the vertex down there. All right, and so when we have a graph that, or a quadratic function that is in vertex form, it's pretty easy. All we have to do is be able to identify h and k. And the only tricky part is, remember, inside that binomial, the h is always the opposite of the number that's inside the binomial. So in this case, let's identify them all. A is 3. H is the opposite of 4, so it's -4. And k is 5. Okay, so that makes our vertex hk. So hk is -4 and 5. And our axis of symmetry, I'm going to write it over here, axis of symmetry is just the x value of our vertex, or x equals -4. All right, and then if we want to graph these, so we're going to just do like a really rough sketch of the graph. It's not going to be perfect by any means, but the thing that will be perfect about it is where the vertex is located and the axis of symmetry. All right, so the vertex is -4, 5. So we're going to go over here to -4. Then we're going to go up to 5. Well, wait a minute. This thing's going to be way off of our graph over here. Whoops. So there we go. That's our vertex way up there in the upper left-hand corner. And then the axis of symmetry, remember, is x equals 4. So that's a vertical line at x equals 4. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a vertical dashed line in there. And you can see it's going off my graph, and that's okay. And then I'm going to switch to red, and I'm just going to make what looks, that's not very good, what looks like a little parabola there. And you'll notice it's fairly symmetrical. Yeah, my arrowhead's kind of janky, but you know, it's fairly symmetrical. And for the purposes of a rough sketch of a graph, this is perfectly fine because I know approximately where that parabola is located. All right. Now we're going to graph this second one on the exact same graph. All right, hopefully we have enough room. Let's see here. But this second one is in standard form. So we have to turn this thing into vertex form in order to be able to graph it. I haven't pointed something out yet, but I'm going to point it out after this one because it's super important. So let's go ahead and convert this thing to vertex form. So it starts with a number that's other than 1. So that means we have to factor it out. So I'm going to go ahead and factor out a -2. All right, so I'm going to say this is now f of x equals -2 with a bracket container, x squared plus 4x minus 6. Okay, I'm going to then complete the square. So we have x squared plus 4x plus 2 squared. Okay, I'm going to put that all in parentheses because I want to kind of keep that by itself. And then minus 6, and then plus 2 squared. All right, so we have negative 2, and then this becomes x plus 2 squared minus 6 plus 4. Okay, so I'm kind of going a little slowly through this thing, but that's okay. You might be able to skip a few steps here and there if you see like, hey, negative 6 plus 2 squared is going to be negative 2. You could just go directly to that instead of writing the step that I did just before this. Okay, and then we're going to distribute that 2, or that negative 2, I mean. So we have negative 2 x plus 2 squared plus 4. Okay, and the thing I didn't do all along was bring the f of x down because that's called being lazy, and that's okay. Laziness is sometimes okay. We can just bring it down and write the f of x like that. All right, so there we go. We converted this thing to vertex form, and now we just need to identify our a is negative 2. Our h is also negative 2, and our k is 4. Okay, so that means our vertex is hk, negative 2, 4, and our axis of symmetry is the x value, x equals negative 2. All right, there's something I want to point out now that we've got this far. Whoops, come on. All right, I'm going to use some highlighting to do it. So notice how we have a is equal to 3 here. When a is equal to a positive 3 like that, that means that our graph is going to be pointing up like the one we did is. When a is negative, that means that our graph is going to be pointing down. So this guy right here is negative. That means our graph is going to be pointing down for the bottom one. Okay, or instead of pointing down, we say it's opening down because the parabola is opening towards the bottom instead of the top. All right, so if we just quickly graph this, we have negative 2, 4 is our vertex. That's a terrible looking point. I need to do that again. Negative 2, 4 is our vertex. It's not a whole lot better. That's better. Axis of symmetry is just negative 2, so I'm going to dash that in like I have here. And then in this case, instead of drawing the graph going up, I'm going to draw it going down. So it's going to look something like that right there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take this nice, neat arrow that I drew, and I'm going to move it so it's right there. So our graph is going down, and it's because that a is negative. Okay, so that's something that I want you to watch out for as you're going through these problems on your own. If a is positive, make sure the graph is pointing up or opening up. If a is negative, make sure that graph is opening. All right, hold up. We've got to do this again. I don't know if you noticed watching it the first time, if you noticed the mistake that I made. And if you didn't, I will zoom in so you can see it. Whenever we are completing the square, we can't add the same thing twice to a function. We have to add it once, which we did right here, but then we have to subtract it, which we did not do right there. So what we need to do is subtract the 2 squared the second time instead of add it. So what I need to do is just, and it's not a huge, I mean, it's a huge problem as far as your answer goes, but it's not a huge mistake to fix because it only affects a little bit of this as we go through. So I'm going to change the plus sign here. Whoa, that's way too big. I got to make that smaller. Hold on. Let's make it real small, see if that works. All right. Whoops. Eraser. Yeah. Oh, much better. So we're going to change that to a minus sign. that means this is going to change to a minus sign. So we're subtracting 4 there instead of adding 4. And when we subtract 4, the 2 changes from a 2 to a 10 because they're both negative 6 and a negative 4. So we just add those two numbers together and we call it negative 10. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that as negative 10 or minus 10. And then when we distribute the negative 2, that negative 10 becomes a positive 20. So this is a positive 20. So we have plus 20. And the result of that means that we can't graph this very easily because it's 20 for our k value. All right, well, we'll just have to deal with that. What the heck? We'll give it a try. We'll see if we can graph it. All right, so our k changes from 4 to 20. So that means we change it in our vertex to 20. Ooh, can I fit it in there? There we go. There we go, 20. All right, let's just double check to make sure everything is right. Okay, so we factored out a negative 2, which makes x squared plus 4x minus 6. Then we added half of 4 squared to the first part, and then we subtracted it from the second part. Looks good so far. Negative minus 6 minus 4 is minus 10, and we distribute the negative 2 to get positive 20. Looks good to me. All right. Now, as far as graphing this thing goes, we've got a bit of a problem. Our vertex is at negative 2 and 20. So instead of being right here where it's nice and neat and easy to graph, it's going to be way off the graph, which is okay. We can kind of fake that. Here, I need to make that eraser bigger now. So what we're going to do is we are going to graph this thing. And, well, look at this. We might actually be able to use that graph way up there. So if we go to negative 2, we got to go up to 20. Whoa, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means if 5 is right there, 10 is about, let's see here, 10 is about there. 15 is about there. 20 is going to be right about there. Perfect. We're going to graph it, and it's going to look funny, but hey. All right, so our vertex is way up there. If you do this on one of your assignments or a test, don't worry. You can say, hey, you did it on the example, Mr. Egbert. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and graph it, and I'm going to grab the pen and make it bigger so we can do this. And I'm going to make it pink so it really stands out. All right, and again, it's upside down because of the negative 2, or it's opening down. And so we can go ahead and draw in what it's going to look like here. Look at that. Isn't this crazy? And then our axis of symmetry is still negative 2. So I'm going to go ahead and use this giant pink one to do this. Here we go. Look at that. So the axis of symmetry goes down like that. Doesn't look the best, but hey, we got it graphed at the vertex at negative 2 and positive 20. All right, sorry about that. Thanks to Abdul for catching it. If you have any questions, let me know. And the video is going to continue now. Down. All right. I think you guys can do this. There's four of them. Well, the first two you just have to look and identify A, H, and K, and then sketch a rough graph. The second two, you have to do some conversion first, and I think you can do it. If not, email me and I'll help you out.